vibing to the Pokemon music right now. Yeah, this one's actually from a ROM hack. Yeah, okay. Had a feeling that was gonna happen. This is, it's not very often that there's a song specifically from a Pokemon ROM hack that's really cool, but that one was from Pokemon Liquid Crystal. And now this is Fire Red and Leaf Green. Recently been playing Emerald Rogue recently. Pretty cool, and Breath of Fresh Air in my Pokemon ROM hack consumption. I'll have to check that one out. I've decided that I think I'm gonna mostly just stream Mario Kart Wii from here on out, but I'm definitely gonna still play ROM hacks like off stream. That'd be fun. I've been playing a little bit of Pokemon Bloody Platinum Redux. My thoughts on that game are a little complicated. But I want something that's a little bit more, a bit less, like, doesn't feel as much like a Kaizo game, or like a difficulty hack. Or, I guess, total conversion. You know, there comes a point where it's kind of hard to describe a Pokemon hack as, like, quality of life if it changes so much. You know, like, Pokemon Radical Red is something that I would qualify as, like, a total conversion Pokemon ROM hack. Because of how much it changes, it's almost like you're playing an entirely new Pokemon game. And I think Bloody Platinum feels kind of similar. Or Bloody Platinum Redux. Because it's very rare in that game that you come across a Pokemon whose stats haven't been, like, drastically changed or reordered or whatever. And some of the stat changes, I'm not sure how I feel about it. Let me look up Pokemon Emerald Rogue. Ever wonder what Pokemon might look like as a roguelike? Interesting. Emerald Rogue do be increasingly difficult. My current best score is beating 2 trainers from the Elite Four, but it gets super hard. Really? Well, I have experience with roguelikes. You know, I've played some Risk of Rain. Risk of Rain 2, that is. So, you know, I'd be interested to check it out, actually. I think, okay, here's what makes me, like, hopeful and potentially excited for a game like Pokemon Emerald Rogue. It might be genuinely difficult, and not like one of those bullshit ROM hacks that decides we're gonna give everybody an expert team just to fuck with you or whatever. You know? I think it's like the prospect of the difficulty actually changing makes me want to play that game. Because I like roguelikes, I think. Once you complete or wipe out of a run, you will go back to a hub area where you can buy permanent items and catch new starter Pokemon to use in the next run. That's super cool. As you progress further into the run, you will unlock more buildings and NPCs in this hub area to use for preparing the next run. Whoa. This actually sounds like it's a really unique thing and like had a lot of effort put into it. Let's see, the features as listed on the site. Randomly chosen routes, procedural items, trainers, and encounters. Hub area, character customization. That's nice. Quicker text. Trade evolutions are now just level up. This sounds awesome. A full run takes around 3 hours, but often at times you'll die along the way, at least for the first few tries, as you haven't unlocked any new feature yet. Yeah, I'm not particularly surprised that we have that kind of difficulty curve. I'm actually interested to like try that, because like a lot of times, you know, you go into a Pokemon game, even with like the super difficult ROM hacks, and the basic attitude that like makes those ROM hacks difficult is that it's like, oh, Nuzlocke, if you die once, you forfeit the whole game. But here, like, dying is part of the game. Like, that's the point of a roguelike. Instead of them being like, you idiot, you absolute buffoon, I can't believe you don't have Pokemon World Championships level of knowledge on the first fucking gym leader. Like, goddamn, dude. Versions expanded EX is a recommended version. This version contains modern improvements like new battle items, abilities, fairy type, physical special split. Yeah. I actually, like, I've been so spoiled by good Pokemon ROM hacks. I can't go back to Pokemon games from Generation 3 and earlier. Like, legit, I can't, because those games don't have physical special split. I have to, like, have the physical special split in order to play Pokemon. Um, and it not feel super, like, clunky and almost all unfinished, you know? Occasionally I'll be able to do that with Generation 1 and 2, because in Gen 1 and Gen 2, the EV system hadn't been implemented yet. There was just the old stat experience system, so you could theoretically max out every stat. You didn't have to choose between attack and special attack. But I think Gen 3 represented an awkward, like, in-between period. Although even with Generation 1 and 2, there's so few moves to choose from, right? Like, the pool of moves now is so much more expanded, that, like, I have a hard time even going back to Generation 1 and 2 as well. Luckily, there exists versions of Gen 1 and 2 with updated everything, stats, moves, and stuff. Yeah, that's right. There are some ROM hacks from Generation 1 and 2 that do that. In fact, I've played one of them, before. It was like... There's some really good ROM hacks of Pokemon Crystal out there. I forget which, like, what it's called. Maybe it was like Pokemon Polished Crystal or something. That was like had a lot of modern improvements. And then there was another version of Pokemon Crystal that didn't have those, but it was so cool that I had to play it anyway because you could progress through the Kanto and Johto region in any order you wanted. We love a pun. Yeah, we do. We do love a pun. Are there any other ROM hacks that I've played recently? Well, I guess not recently. I haven't been playing much Pokemon ROM hacks recently. I haven't played very many Kaizo ROM hacks in the sense of, like, the ROM hacks that put the word Kaizo in the hack title. Because I feel like they don't add a whole lot. You know, I've played ROM hacks that are as hard as a Kaizo hack, and I don't have a lot of fun with those, honestly. Like Pokemon Radical Red, a lot of cool features, but it's so player hostile that I don't enjoy it all that much. At least the battling system is very player hostile. And I didn't play that game for the Kaizo stuff. I played it for, like, the other cool new Pokemon and updated stuff that it offered. You know? You know what else I've also never played? I don't think I've ever played, not all the way through. I haven't played Pokemon Light Platinum. Smooth Brain doesn't do well with Kaizo. Hyper difficult for the sake of being difficult. ROM hacks. Yeah, I don't find that all that interesting because, like, the reason I play a ROM hack isn't for the difficulty. You know, there are difficult games that I play, but, you know, Pokemon is not really one of them. You know, I think the only time I think a Kaizo hack is really interesting is with platforming games. And by that I mostly mean Mario games. And that's not to say they're always super interesting, but they have the potential to be very interesting. Because if you think about, like, a Kaizo Mario game, you have to introduce a lot of really creative and genuinely difficult and precise elements of platforming in order to make it difficult enough to be considered Kaizo. And I've seen enough Kaizo hacks that are, like, have enough variety between them to know that, like, there are good and bad versions of doing that. It's not all, like, it doesn't all feel samey. You know? And like, you could do the whole, like, oh yeah, just do a million of the same super insane difficult trick, right? But, like, then I think, like, it gets old really quickly. And I think with Pokemon games, that isn't present as much. There's a lot more leeway for people who make ROM hacks to just sort of make the same old trick, you know? And by the same old trick, what I mostly mean is that every Pokemon hack that, like, ramps up the difficulty, what do? Well, they give gym leaders really high-level Pokemon, and then they give them perfect EVs and IVs and competitive movesets. And that's it. There's no real creativity there, you know? Sometimes, honestly, the more interesting thing that I've seen done in some, like, difficulty upscaling in Pokemon is when, yes, you have, like, maybe a competitively viable or reasonable team, but instead of, like, doing the whole perfect EVs and IVs thing, it's just Pokemon you wouldn't necessarily expect that do fit into the theming. You know, like give a grass type gym leader also a lot of also like a water type, you know, to counter the fire types that you would bring. The inclusion of like less predictable elements, I think makes the difficulty hacks a lot more enjoyable for me. Um, you know, that's one of the few things in Radical Red that I did enjoy, is that, like, you know, I basically view the whole, oh, perfect EV IV spread as sort of a cheap trick, but then, like, the adding moves that you might not expect and Pokemon that you might not expect, that is genuine creativity to me. You know what, as well, Pokemon Bloody Platinum Redux did something interesting that I haven't seen before, which makes me respect the ROM hack quite a bit more than something like Radical Red, is that they made certain bosses more difficult than gym leaders. And I think that's like an underexplored thing in ROM hacks, where, like, you know, sometimes you have the gym leader and then you know, you have the Team Rocket guys, say, in Heart Gold Soul Silver. And the Team Rocket people are so underleveled. It's like, dog, why don't the gym leaders just come in here and mop the floor with these guys, you know? Like, sure, they have strength in numbers, but if you one-hit KO everything you come across, right? It's not going to be that hard. But in Pokemon Bloody Platinum Redux, the Team Galactic bosses are actually more difficult than the gym leaders that they are closest to in terms of proximity to the game, which is interesting. Because now it actually provides a reason, like, yeah, this is why the gym leaders don't just come in and deal with this, because it'd be really difficult for them as well. Yeah, you know, I'd have to give it a lot of thought. What elements of like Pokemon in particular that I like, if we're coming at this from the perspective of wanting to make like a more difficult Pokemon game, because it's clear that, like, the most common tropes are not really the things that work. At least there's not, like, it's not a full overlap, you know. In fact, I think if I could if I had to vocalize my biggest gripe, it would probably be with the just full EV IV, like no gradual ramp up model of Kaizo difficulty in Pokemon. Particularly, I encountered this in Radical Red with the first gym, Faulkner. There is no way that you can actually go into that early in the game having picked out a team that's capable of dealing with him. And I think that's bad design, right? Because his Pokemon, as far as I know, even that early in the game, his Pokemon have full movesets, full, like, competitive EV IV spread, and also have, like, items and stuff, which there's no way you could have gotten at that point in the game. It's like, it's an unnecessary difficulty spike, I think, but it's also, like, anti-game design, if that makes sense, right? Like, even in a Kaizo game, to make it still feel like a game, you know, there should be a proper amount of lead up and design that makes you feel like you can maybe take the challenges as they're coming to you, you know? Like, if you want to make me think, then make me think, by all means. You know, that's kind of how Pokemon works at its best when it's difficult, you know, is that you do have to think about the moves that you're making. But, like, instead of that, what they do is they try to bust your brain and make you grind for hours before you even get to the point where you can start, like, properly thinking about what it is you need to do. You know, and combine that with the fact that there's a hard level cap in Radical Red, you know, and that's just bad design, you know? Like, it's a single-player Pokemon game. At some point, just leveling myself up a shit ton should be a solution to the problem I'm facing. You know, maybe it shouldn't be the end-all be-all, but it should be an option. So I guess for all the problems I've had with ROM hacks like Radical Red, which I have name-dropped several times, I think those could really, a lot of those could be solved if you just didn't have the competitive set, a competitive spread of EVs and IVs, at least until very, very late into the game, right? Because there's no way that you go in wanting to play a new Pokemon game and knowing that you have to grind for hours. That's just not fun. That's not a game anymore. You've given me a homework assignment, and I'm not in school. I'm not here to do homework. You know, totally I want fun. Yes, even the most difficult Pokemon ROM hack should be fun because you're making a Pokemon game. You're not making cock and ball torture. Unless you are, in which case, go off, but I'm not into that. Anyways.